Martin from Alba Orbital Ltd.
Until last Friday, I was a project manager and senior systems engineer there, and then on Tuesday, 2 days ago, I moved to Australia. So I no longer work for Alba officially. I'm in a consultative basis as well. Background of the company: 2012, went full time a year later. Founded by Tom Walkinshaw, who I'm sure some of you have heard. He speaks at just about every CUBESAT and PocketQube workshop going. As of March, we were 10 employees, although we've dropped down to 9, obviously, in the manufacturer. Moved to a new office, end of January this year, where we doubled our office space. Obviously, with 10 employees, we were stuck in a place that could house about 4, and it got a little too comfortable for some people. We've grown 100% year on year for 3 years. At the beginning, obviously, there was just Tom, the founder. Taking on gradually people, students, interns, and finally started taking on full-time people a couple of years ago. And yeah, we've grown up. Our main business at the minute is co-funded programs with ESA, which is how we're growing our PocketQubes. There's the team. Tom Walkinshaw, the tall ginger chap in the middle, some of you will know, and there's me holding our first satellite there at the front. So the PocketQube standard, Stuart talked about this a couple of talks ago, so there's not much point in me going over the same stuff. It's a 5 centimeter standard cube, which was standardized in 2010. 1P is a 5 centimeter cube. That's obviously when you half the length compared to a 1U at 10 centimeters, you end up with a quarter of the area and an eighth of the volume. So by decreasing to a smaller standard, you end up with a lot less mass. And the less mass you've got, obviously with people that are looking at launch costs, when you have to pay for them commercially, that really, really decreases your cost for launches and makes things a lot more commercially viable. With obviously the down, like that. You have to have a smaller payload, you can't carry as much, but it's a different business proposition. So why would you go for PocketQubes? Cost, basically. Why would you build something that's like a bus to carry something into orbit when you can carry something a fraction of the size and spend a lot less money? It's a widely publicized thing. When you're paying commercially for launches into orbit, you are basically, it's the weight of something in gold is what it costs to launch it. Put it into those kind of terms, the benefits of moving to a smaller standard are very obvious. Miniaturization and integration really helps drive the smaller satellites, and that's a big point for PocketQubes. They're very much a cottage industry at the minute, probably where CubeSats were 5 years ago, maybe a bit longer. In those days, it was just people springing up all over the place and building stuff, and now it's much more of a recognizable industry, and I'm sure people that have been in the industry for a long time playing with CubeSats will agree that things have grown up a lot. So PocketQubes are basically the smaller brother of CubeSats. So, the industry, there's Tom presenting at Delft, who had a workshop on PocketQubes in the Netherlands last month. About 60 people in all. Every other time that we've had a PocketQube workshop, there's been a very, very small number of people. You'd be lucky if you got into double figures. A lot of one-man bands, 1-2 people, a few academics. Delft are the big players academically, and Alba are probably the biggest, most advanced company in PocketQube. It's very, very European focused at the minute. Usually when it comes to things like this in CubeSats, it tends to be based around America. But for some reason the US hasn't really moved on to look at from CubeSats into PocketQubes. I expect that's probably due to launch. There's a lot of sublimation of launch costs for CubeSats. So when you're not paying as much for your launch, you don't care about moving to a smaller standard that will save you that money. There are a few examples, such as OddsCube, based in Perth. Yeah, very, very European focused. So that's Alba's first satellite. It's a 2P PocketQube with a LEO to GEO link, funded by the European Space Agency. It was their smallest satellite ever. It was supposed to be launched in late 2016, and now it's looking like late 2018. Stories like that probably aren't a lot of a surprise to people who've been around the industry and launching CubeSats for years. You really are at the mercy of what other people are doing and when things are getting launched. You can see the internals of Unicorn 1 here, and the way we stack the boards. It does look like a little baby brother of a CubeSat. There's radio, all the usual systems, OBC, EPS, and battery at the bottom there. Then on the right hand side you can see the antenna that's at the top, and the solar cells that spring out with using tape strings to deploy. So, Unicorn 2, that's the project that I was a project manager on. It's more of a platform than a specified payload. We're using a dummy payload at the minute, but it's an increase in size of 50% over the previous Unicorn 1, which is 2B. We're very much changing our approach on how we design it from the modular boards, where, with a CubeSat you can buy boards and then you plug them together, and that works for CubeSats. But it's not really our experience that that's starting to work for PocketQubes, because when you reduce the size, you have to go much more with the mobile phone design or integrate stuff a lot more, which is why we're going for an integrated backplane. The backplane down one side has the EPS, OBC, and ADCS all joined together to try and save space. Unicorn 2 will have active pointing rather than passive pointing, with reaction wheels, magnetorquers, and we're aiming to get 5 degrees of accuracy, which doesn't seem very good for people with CubeSats and cameras, but for the type of program that we're going to be targeting in terms of payloads, that's probably going to be good enough, but we're going to continue to develop that to keep it, trying to catch up with CubeSats all the time. It's probably best with the quadruple solar panels to show you our CAD model that we developed for the PDR last month. 4 panels on each side, creating power generation that you can only really expect from CubeSats until this. It is at a very early stage. We only did PDR a few weeks ago, so I don't really have anything except for CAD to show you, which, as you can expect. As part of Unicorn 2, there's also a PocketQube Orbital Deployer, which aims to help with the problems of launch that you have with PocketQubes. Obviously, it's such a small thing. This would take up to 96p, so up to 96 satellites in one dispenser. If you look at that in terms of the cube law, then that would be the same as 12 1U CubeSats, or if you had 3U CubeSats, that would only be 4. There would only be a quad pack there for that. 96 satellites instead. This is based on a modular approach. I mean, we're looking at smaller ones, but this would be the Rolls-Royce solution to launch as many as possible, and that would help with the problems with launch, which is really the thing dragging us down to the minute. So I wanted to talk to you about the problems that we've encountered with PocketQubes. I've got a couple of slides here on it. A lot of the things that we've encountered with PocketQubes will be the same things that people have been in CubeSats for a few years will have seen. You really need to have realistic goals when you start off with. If you try and design something that's going to be too onerous, you're going to fail, you're going to fail bad. If you try and have it realistic, if you feel you can learn from that and try and make it better next time, always prototype and get hardware quickly. That's similar to the last talk where they were quoting Facebook and the fact that you want to code quickly. If you prototype it, you can see where you're going wrong and you can adjust your approach. Documentation, especially for student projects, you maybe forget about this sometimes. I know I did when I was a student. It's very, very important. Somebody was said to me recently that if you don't document it, it didn't happen. And trust me, when people leave the company and they haven't documented what they've done, it didn't happen. And there's another lot about what I've already talked about modularity, where we found that we've had to abandon that at PocketQube level for integration, allowing for a payload. Company-wise, lessons we've learned, co-location helps a lot. Isolating yourself really doesn't help with the problems that I'm sure people in Australia have encountered when you have people in other countries and time differences. It's really bad. Contractors, we try and minimize our work on contractors because they tend to interpret requirements very, very literally and do what they think you've asked them to do, or what they might not have understood what your requirement was. It's better to have people in the room. Hiring people is easy. You offer somebody a job, they'll come along, they'll take your money, and they'll do the job they thought you want. I'm sure people have all sat in there when you've been hiring and hired people, and it doesn't seem easy, but hiring people is easy. But building a team is very hard when you try and fit all the cogs together to try and make a team that will produce something in the end. And finally, launch opportunities. That's what's holding PocketQubes back at the minute, I think. It's a big, big thing. If you think it's a problem with CubeSats, you've got no idea until you start working for PocketQubes. So I'm Gary Barton. Obviously I've left Alba now. I've included Tom Walkinshaw, who's the founder of Alba and CEO. Feel free to drop either of us an email if you want to know anything more about PocketQubes. We believe we're the most advanced PocketQube at the minute in the world. But we love to talk to people. As was said yesterday by, I believe it was Ian Cartwright, collaborate rather than compete. And I think that's the real thing with PocketQubes at the minute. We all want to collaborate, and that's why we held the workshop. So, thank you.
I was really interested in your team building point. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what processes have you guys used to build good teams?
If you've got a lot of money, you can hire exactly who you want in the exact roles. When you don't have a lot of money, like we do at the minute, it's more about trying to find people that fill holes that you've got. You can hire people to do a very, very specific thing, but they're not very good at other things, or you can hire a generalist to fill in a lot of holes, but they might need more time to do stuff. I want to say it's an art rather than a science, but it's everything. It's luck. We tried to hire somebody last year. We couldn't find anyone to do the role that we wanted. 2 months later, we're getting bombarded with CVs for people that were perfect for the role, but we'd already hired somebody else. It's tricky. There's no answer to it. I don't think anyone who tells you that there's a definite answer is lying. I'm sorry.
Okay, any other questions in the back?
It seems there's a limit on the amount of power that's available for all the things that you have to do. CubeSats don't have much, say a normal CubeSat would have something like an average of a watt over an orbit. I can't see how you're going to have sufficient solar cells or batteries to be able to do very much at all, so you're going to have a very limited subset of experiments.
Well, we're never going to be able to do everything that a CubeSat does in terms of volume, in terms of power, but the deployable solar panels really help with the generation aspect of it. Battery-wise, yes, batteries scale. You can't miniaturize a battery. The chemistry of it doesn't help. Like with big satellites, and you look at, they always said CubeSats will never work. They're too small to do this. CubeSats have managed to eke out a niche for themselves, and I think PocketQubes will continue to do that for themselves. There'll be things that you can do with a PocketQube that yes, you can do in a CubeSat, but you can do it in a quarter or an eighth of the volume and mass, then you can do it a lot cheaper. And I think there'll be a market for that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.